Hello my lovely Flosstube friends, welcome back to the channel. A very warm welcomes to you all and a special warm welcomes to the extra 194 new subscribers to the channel. Thank you for subscribing and I hope you enjoy the content here on this channel. What to tell you all people, yep, we are at April update. Finally, I'm back on track. I'm back in the right zone and I'm hopefully all caught up. So what have we got to talk about today? Well, we've got some whip update. I would love to tell you there's haul, but there's no haul, but there is a little story to go with the haul. We have plans and we have a little bit of life update. So buckle in and let's have a little look at what I've managed to achieve this month. So for those of you that watched my March update, you will know that I was severely lagging behind on my whip go because I was away on holiday in February and most of March, which only left me half of March to basically clear the backlog for Whip Go for, I think I was delayed on January, so that had rolled into February. I was obviously didn't really get anything done in February. And then half of March I was on holiday. So yeah, the second half of March I was sitting there thinking, how on earth am I going to catch up on all my Whip Go? I am pleased to report that I did manage to catch up on my Whip Go. So I am like super happy. So for those of you that don't really know what Whip Go basically is run by Jessie Marie Does Stuff here on Flosstube, and also we have a group on Facebook. I'll put the link to the Facebook group below and I'll put a link here for Jessie's channel. So basically Whip Go is that you create a board with your projects on and then she calls 2 numbers a month and you stitch whatever the goal was. So back in 2022, I didn't do a Whip Go and I don't feel that I was as productive as I normally am. Whether that be to do with life or whether that be to do with the fact that I didn't have a Whip Go going, who knows? What I do know was that when I did Whip Go in 2021, although it held me accountable, I sort of dropped off halfway through the year because I made my goals really unachievable is the only way to describe it. So let me share with you my Whip Go boards. So you're sitting there thinking to yourself, Whip Go boards, Teresa? Hang on a minute, you just said Whip Go board. Right, yes, I know. I decided that I was going with 2 Whip Go boards. So I have 2 Whip Go boards. One is just for full coverage and the other one is basically for everything else. The reason for that is that I always find that evening stitching and stitching when I'm tired, I'll always go with the easy option. And the easy option is not a full coverage. So everything else seemed to be getting a lot more stitchy time. And my full coverages basically got neglected. So to try and avoid that, I decided that I would incorporate 2 different boards. One which is for everything else and one that is for full coverage. That way, I feel like everything gets a fair mix of stitching. That said, I work now back up in the city at least 3 days a week, sometimes 4 days a week. So because of that, it does make a bit of a dent on my stitchy time that I have here at home. My full coverages only get stitched on when I'm at home and they're on the scroll bars and they're on the frame in the living room. The problem with that is, again, I'm on limited time and then the time that I am at home in the evening, because I don't come home until 7:30, I don't really feel much like stitching on full coverages. Not for very long anyway, so they get like an hour and that's it. Which on some of the full coverages, specifically things like alternative reality, they're rather confetti heavy. So an hour of stitching on my alternative reality sometimes can mean as little as 100 stitches, which then makes it seem like it's going so slowly. However, I decided that if I do this right, based on my current lifestyle, that it will work in my favour. So because full coverages only get stitched in the evenings and on weekends, they have their own board and they're the ones that I stitch on when I'm at home. However, I do a lot of train stitching now because I'm travelling in and out of London. Full coverage is not something I can take on a train. I could take it on a train, I just wouldn't take it on a train. Not unless it was just basically block stitching, which most of my full coverages, as I say, are all rather confetti. So because of that, I'm finding that my stitching that I'm doing on the train is basically a lot of everything else. So, you know, my Marabilias, my fancy ladies, my fancy men, my samplers, yeah, my smalls, everything else seems to be getting much more production happening on train stitching. So because of that, I have the 2 boards, and this is holding me accountable, and it is working. So let me share with you my boards. So like I say, I have a Whip Go board, which is basically my everything else board, and I also have my full coverage board, which is just for my full coverage projects. You can see that I have tried to make my Whip Go board theme based rather than project based, and there is a method to the madness here, and that is I didn't like being told what I had to stitch on, even if I'd put it onto the board myself. So I'm very much, I stitch what I fancy in the moment. So if I'm in the mood for something, then I'll stitch it. But if I'm really not in the mood for something and I have to stitch it, I just find it a bit of a struggle. So by making this board a theme related board, it makes it so much more achievable and so much more enjoyable, because if I don't fancy stitching on one thing, I have choices. So there's lots of choices here, which is exactly how I like it. So on my Whip Go board, you will see it's the very theme related. So it basically has samplers, it has fancy men, fancy ladies, it has chatelaines, it has winter and Christmas, it has autumn and Halloween, it has spring, it has summer. And it also has a pick at will. Now the pick at will basically means I can pick whatever I like. And that is what I like about this, like doing the Whip Go board this way, because there's not really hard and fast rules. It's not like, okay, I have to stitch on this project. I have choices. Also, what I've tried to do this time round is not make my goals so unachievable. Last time I think I was doing, I had to stitch so many stitches on this project and so many stitches on that project, or a week and 10 days on this project. They were all really unrealistic, but at the time I had no idea that they were that unrealistic until life changed. And then at that point I was like, it's not working so well. So on this Whip Go board now, I've made it so that the maximum number of days I'll stitch on something is 5 days. So at least that way, Monday to Friday, I'll just stitch on that one on my train in and out of London. It goes down as low as 2 days of stitching. So it doesn't make any difference how many stitches I do, just as long as I've stitched on it 2 days. This also works because I have to separate my stitching on the train to my stitching at home. Because I can't stitch on the same things, this works perfectly for me. So like I say, my main Whip Go board is theme related. It gives me much more flexibility, not only with the goal itself, it makes it achievable, but the flexibility is from the perspective of there are choices of what I want to stitch on rather than being told what particular project I have to stitch on. For the full coverage board, it basically covers all of my full coverage. Now, when I say full coverage, things like my duck, as an example, people would say, well, it's not full coverage because it hasn't got a background. But the duck itself is full coverage. So that falls into this category. Also, as you'll find out further on in this video, the plan is to start my new stocking by Heaven and Earth Design, Deer Creek. And that, again, although it's a stocking shape, it's still full coverage. So that fits into this category also. Now, again, I've kept it simple, but this one isn't theme related. This is project related. So this ensures that everything gets a bit of love. I've made it realistic as far as the days. So as long as something gets stitched on, I think a maximum of 5 days, and again, a minimum of 2 days. But again, what I like about this is on one day, I can stitch one thing from my main Whip Go themed board and also one thing from my full coverage board in one day, and I've covered 1 day for each board. So although you might think, well, that's a lot of days of stitching, it's not, because it's not a whole day. I have to break it down to the way it actually is for my life. I have train stitching and then I have my home stitching. I'm trying to make it so that the full coverages are getting more love on home stitching and everything else is getting the love on my commute stitching. And then there's a little bit of a grey area. Now, the grey area basically is as long as I've achieved all of my whip go, the rest of the month is my own. And the fact that, as I say, the maximum I ever stitch on anything is 5 days, that could be 5 days for something on the main whip go theme board, 5 days on the full coverage board. It's not 10 days of stitching, it's still just 5 days of stitching. So there's still a lot of the month that I have flexibility to then stitch things that fall outside of whip go. That's where the flexibility comes in for me. So, as I was saying, my whip go was falling behind. Now, a lot of people might say that if the numbers are called in February, you have to stitch it in February. And then if the numbers are called in March, you have to stitch it in March. I don't see my whip go being that strict. So if a number gets called in February and it takes me until April to actually complete that goal, as far as I'm concerned, it's still completed. I'll just need to make sure that I'm also completing everything else that's called. So for me, whip go might be something slightly different for anybody else, but it is very much holding me accountable, and it's keeping things fresh. I'm not feeling like I'm stuck in a rut where I have to stitch on certain things, which is glorious. So, like I say, whip go was lagging behind because I was on holiday. Then I was really busy with work. And by the time I got to March, I was basically trying to play catch up on the whip go board. And I'm pleased to say that I have finally achieved it. So by the time I'm now heading into May, I'm now just got May to stitch, which is great. So I just need to stay on track now where I can. So now I've given you a small explanation as to where the thought process has been and what I've been trying to do. A lot of these projects were basically projects that should have been stitched in my whip go for the end of January, February and March. So this is where we got to. So time to see exactly what I've managed to achieve in the month of April. So the first one up is the wall shop. Here it is, where I've got pictures of where you saw it last time. Hopefully that will be able to show on the screen for you. And the wall shop, I hadn't really done a lot on this one, but it was called in my whip go. This one's being stitched on a 28 count easy guide. I'm using the CXC threads. They're not what I love, but I'm rolling with the CXC threads. This one doesn't really have that much confetti, so therefore I'm going to carry on with the CXC threads with this one. It's being stitched, like I say, 28 count easy guide, and I'm doing it 2/1/10 stitch. And this one got 5 days worth of stitching. Now, for the first time in a long time, because this is like more block stitching, this one actually progressed quite nicely. There was a couple of evenings when I was stitching on this, and because it's very blocky coloured, I actually got around 500 stitches on this in the evening, in one evening. And then I did the same on another evening. I was like, wow, yeah. But I must admit, as much as I struggle sometimes working with the confetti pieces, to start with, it was a pleasure to work on something really blocky. But then by the time I got to the end of those 5 days, I was like, I'm a bit bored of stitching the same colour over and over again. It was just very therapeutic to start with. So, like I say, it got 5 days worth of stitching. And Pattern Keeper says that this is now at 0.94%. And again, I'm working in the diagonals. I do feel like I've done quite a lot more on this particular project. And yeah, you know when it's just like you're sort of sitting there thinking to yourself, have I stitched a lot on this? Or is it just me? But proof will be in the pudding. I haven't even, because I'm editing over the top of this video, I haven't even seen myself the last time you saw this. So yeah, this is what I like about doing these videos. Sometimes it reminds me how much I've actually done. So that was the first project that got some love in the month of April. For those of you that were watching any of my pre-recorded Stitch With Me's, you will know that I was also working on my lovely winter white Santa. Here he is in all his glory. I used this one for a recorded video. It is the only time that it got touched on. It was part of my whip go. I needed to stitch on a winter or Christmas. So therefore the wool shop was part of that. And then I decided that Winter White Santa by Marabilia could come out to play because he's also winter. And yeah, I mean, I literally just stitched on this section here. I done a little bit up here and then worked on this section here. Winter White Santa is being stitched on a 28 count Lugana in the colorway Tempest by Chromatic Alchemy. And he got 2 days worth of stitching. So yeah, and you know what? Every single time I get him out, I'm like, love, 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 love. The only thing that I am thinking about this is because I would like to try to get a bit more progress on him this year, is I made the mistake of putting beads on, because when I first started working on him, I was working on a scroll bar, and since then he's now turned into basically a stitching with me type project as well as a train project. Now, that's only going to work all the time that the Q-snap stays outside the way of these beads. At some point, there's going to come a point where I'm going to need to stitch a bit of him, and these beads are going to get in the way of the Q-snap plastics. When I get to that point, I'm going to need to probably put him on a scroll bar, get myself to a point where I can avoid the beading, and then I'll be able to put it back onto a Q-snap. But yeah. There you go. Even I make mistakes like that. But I'm sure there's a way around it and he will still get plenty of love. But I just love his cute little face. He looks so, so cute. The only bit that does worry me is taking so long to stitch on this. It worries me that the white thread is going to get dirty and I can't wash him because it's on a hand-dyed fabric. So I'm trying to be super careful with him, and obviously trying to take him on the train and pull him in and out of bags does worry me that he's going to get dirty. But where I can, I try and do a bit of spot cleaning. So if it comes to it, I'll probably use a little baby wipe and just sort of baby wipe and dab rather than brush. I'll use like a dabbing motion and baby wipe his little white beard. But so far, I don't think the white looks like it's got too dirty. But yeah, it's a worry. It is definitely a worry. But like I say, this one got 2 days worth of stitching. So we're just working on his shoulder here. I just want to try and get him down a little bit and get a bit more of his beard in, I think. But rather happy with how he's turning out. Where I've got pictures of where I last showed you, I will be sharing those with you as and when I can. The next project that I worked on was, again, it was another train project. As part of Whip Go, I needed 4 days on a fancy lady. So again, of course, I decided to use my Magwayen by Bella Filipina. I've been using this for not only the train, but also with the last live stream. I don't think I've done too bad on this at all. I think the last time you saw it, it just had the black on it. So I've done all of this stitching, and all of this stitching has been done on the train, other than this little section here, which I did on the last live stream. So Magwayen is being stitched on a 28 count Lugana, hand dyed by me. And this one has had a whopping 11 days worth of stitching. You know, when you're just like, wow, that's rather impressive, 11 days. But like I say, this, when I'm saying 11 days, that could be 11 mornings on the train. I think this is at about 10 mornings on the train, and then the 1 day that I done it on the live where I just did this last bit. What is super cool, she says, is this last edge here is the last edge of the dress, and then there's like a bow you'll see on the picture. Around here there's like a sash, and then the ship is over here. So yeah, I'm looking forward to getting over onto the ship, but I'm looking forward to doing the pink sash along here. So again, I don't think I've done too badly on that, and 11 days worth of stitching. 11 days worth of stitching and train stitching. I don't think we did too shabby at all for that one. So that one got some love. The one that I failed miserably at, she says, unfortunately, was the last time we spoke in March. I was talking about my Tap Dancer by Longdog Sampler. And the plan was that because I was so close to a page finish, I was planning to get the page finish on him. Now, I haven't achieved the page finish. So my tap dancer is being stitched on a 25 count Lugana in the colorway April Shower by Hand Dyed Fabrics by Stephanie. Love this fabric. And I'm using a Silks for You thread, she says. Turn it around the right way. Silks for You thread, which came as a hank, which I broke down into sections. And this is PR109. Love the thread. Love the colours. And it was so close. It was so close. I did do a little bit more stitching on it since the last time we spoke. But the plan was to get a page finish. And the page finish would have meant literally just stitching down here and stitching down here. And I think there's just a little bit here. I did put it up in the bedroom and put it next to me on the bedside in the hope and anticipation that I would stitch on this when Darren was on night work. Unfortunately, his nights got cancelled twice in a row, and he was on days. And yeah, he doesn't like it when I stitch in bed. One, because he gets floss all over him, and secondly, because I like to have like a big light on it so I can see what I'm doing, and he doesn't like it because he's trying to watch TV and the light's distracting. So yeah, I did put it up there with all the good intentions. I just didn't actually do anything with it. So hopefully, in fact, maybe I should hold myself accountable now. Hopefully, if all goes according to plan, I can get that to a point that I'm at a page finish by the end of May. That can't be that hard. I mean, I've got my whip go, which I'll go through with you, what was called in May. But because of what's being called and the number of days it needs stitching, it does leave me a lot of days of other stitching that I can do, in which case I could actually take that one on the train and use that as a train project to get my page finish. I mean, and it is a super easy one to actually stitch on when I'm on the train, because it's basically one color. I just pull the color and I just stitch away to my heart's content. Yeah, it's that easy. I just don't do it. So next up, this is my new project, or my new start that I started, and yeah, I'm loving. Love. So this is my duck. This is the little princess duck. Again, Heaven and Earth design. All the details for the projects that I'm showing will be in a Google Documents in the description box below, because it's got all of the information in there. This one is being stitched on a 28 count Lugana by Fortnight Fabrics in the colorway Cute, and it's being stitched 2/1 tent stitch, and I've already got to 2.96%. And yeah, I love, and I've decided to go around the top. We already had this bit here and the white bit, which I'd started at the retreat, and I did try and do this on a stitch with a live stream. That was a bad move, because the color that I was trying to stitch was this color, which blends terribly with the background color. And needless to say, I couldn't actually see what I was doing. That was a bit of a disaster live stream. So after I did that, I decided I needed to work my way up to the top and complete this section to give me some color borders to work from. And since I've done that, I am over the moon. The difference with this full coverage versus any other full coverages that I currently have working is that although it's a full coverage, it's got no background. The duck himself is full coverage, but the background isn't. So therefore, I needed a fabric that had a nice coloured background. And Easy Guide and Magic Guide just was not going to cut it for me. This is the first time that I'm doing a full coverage without a gridded fabric, and I'm not gridding my fabric. So I'm going to try to continue working in my 10x10 blocks like I've done here, in the hope that the 10x10 blocks will be basically my own personal grid lines, is how it's going to work. But I have thoroughly enjoyed working on this. There's, as you can see, there are lots and lots of areas of confetti in this. There is a lot of colours in there. So it takes a little bit of time, but love. So my little princess duck got 7 days worth of stitching. That's how much I was having fun with this. It got a full 7 days worth of stitching on my duck, and absolutely loved working on it. So again, more progress. I'm loving how the progress has gone, and I do feel like it's been like a full-on full coverage, lots of full coverage type stuff going on. So continuing the theme with the full coverages, I also pulled out to give a bit of love, she says, once she's unraveled it, is my Heaven and Earth Design Peacocks Lagoon. And this is one of the ones that's going to be like a lifetime worth of stitching, because it's just so big, and it's one of the ones that I don't really get to as often as I would like. So here it is. So this is Peacocks Lagoon. Peacocks Lagoon is on a 25 count magic guide in white in 2/1 tent stitch, and I got to 8.09% on this piece. Now 8.09% is not a lot, but this is going to be a monster project for me. So I've been stitching on this one down here in this area, I believe, and again was rather enjoying myself stitching on, again, a bit more of the blockier colors. There's less threads that I'm parking, unlike up here where there's a lot more different colors. So this bit I found really quite therapeutic. Again, this is another one that doesn't really come out as much as it should, but having it on my Whip Go is definitely making it so that I'm holding myself more accountable. So my Peacocks Lagoon got 2 days worth of stitching. So I literally went down here and it had 2 days down here. This is going to be a project that will be like a lifetime project. It's going to take me a long time to get that one done. I think once it gets further on, it might get a bit more interesting, because with this one, I just feel like I'm constantly stitching background. I'm looking forward to getting down to the peacocks and that area. But yeah, that's a long way off. A long way off. What else have I been stitching? So of course we are staying with the theme of full coverage, and again I have been working on another full coverage, and this is my mini Red Queen Red Dragon. It's being stitched on a 28 count magic guide 2/1 tent stitch, and we are now at 18.93%. And I think I've basically been working in this section. So I've done a little bit more down here and a little bit more on the dragon. Let me zoom you in a little bit. You can see here that there's some stitches that are missing. I was waiting to be able to get the thread for this, but it only needed, I think there's 2 colors that I didn't have, I'd run out of, and I can't just order 2 threads for arrival. The shipping charges is too high. So I was waiting until I needed to order some other stuff and ordered the threads. I'm pleased to say they've arrived. So the next time I get to stitch on this, I'm hoping to be able to fill these spaces in and start working a bit more on the dragon. Again, I'm working on a diagonal. You can see I've almost got this fully on the diagonal. It needs one more row, and then that will be a full diagonal. And then I'll do the same thing up here, and I'll get this on a diagonal, and then I can just work my way straight down in blocks of 10. Love stitching on this one, absolutely love it. Again, another project that I was neglecting massively, and given that I'm now doing the Whip Go, it is definitely holding me more accountable. So that is my mini Red Queen Red Dragon. A mini Red Queen Red Dragon, again, 2 days worth of stitching, not masses, far from masses. Now this one I need to try and put up here without banging and crashing around. So this one is my wonderful, she says, wonderful alternative reality. Here it is. And again, I feel like I've achieved a lot more on this, although it doesn't really look like it. I think I really did. I'm not sure whether I've stitched on any more at the top here. You can see it's almost fully on the diagonal now. So there's just maybe another row here to bring it in line. But I think I was predominantly working sort of in this section along here. Definitely done more in this section down here. And this one is being stitched on 25 count easy guide in the colour Ecru, 1/1 full cross, and we are now at 26.20%. And absolutely love stitching on this one. It's had 5 days worth of stitching. So again, evening stitching or weekend stitching only. Love, 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 love. And I keep saying I'm going to try and make it a focus piece, but I'm focusing on it as much as I can. But this one is really, really heavy with the confetti. So I can spend an hour or two working on this, and the Josephine walls are renowned for this, that they are very confetti heavy. So therefore, I can do an hour or two's worth of stitching, and if I'm lucky, I'll get 100, maybe 200 stitches in it, because there's just so many color changes. But the results are outstanding. I could sit and look at it all day long, just sat on the frame, even without stitching it. So, but I'm looking forward to sort of getting to her reflection when I see her over this side. It has taken me a long time to get to this point, and I'm hoping that I can try and up the ante a little bit on this and get a few more big chunks done. Best laid plans and all that, but I absolutely love stitch. You know, when there's certain projects that you just love to stitch on? Well, this is one of those. This is one of those projects that, you know, I can pull it out. If I do 100 stitches on it, then I'm happy. If I only do 50 stitches on it, I'm also happy, because it's always moving forwards. And I'm starting to watch the percentage on Pattern Keeper go up, which is always a wonderful thing. So that was all the whips that I managed to actually stitch on. If you have watched any of my recent videos that I've loaded up about kitting up and calculating, you will know that I have a new project for a new start waiting in the wings. Now, this is where the little story comes in with the haul. So I'd done all my calculating. I'd organised all my threads. I went to pick it up and start it yesterday, which is my new stocking by Heaven and Earth Design, Donna Gelsinger, the Deer Creek. And would you believe it, that somehow, and to this day, I still don't know how I've managed to do it. When I picked the fabric and clicked on it, I clicked on the wrong size. So at first I thought they'd sent me the wrong size, but then when I went and looked, I realised that it was my mistake. I'm the one that asked for the size of fabric that I got, and it is way too small. And I knew how big my project was supposed to be. So it wasn't even that I hadn't calculated it properly. It was more a case of I just didn't click on the right button. I obviously was having a moment, one of those moments in my mind. So I clicked on the wrong button. So because I pulled it out, all excited yesterday to start on the 1st of the month. And yep, big fat 0 there. So needless to say, I had to order myself another piece of fabric, which will be big enough. And it's whizzing its way in the post to me. So as soon as that gets here, there will be a new start in May for that. But that wasn't supposed to have been a new start per se for May. It was just that I'd already decided that the bank holiday was going to be when I started it. I am super excited to stitch on it. It is the first time since I stitched Grace Faces. Where is she? There, up there, she says. There. It is going to be the first time stitching back on an 18 count Ada. I just fancied to stitch on something big with big squares, easy to see. I've missed it. So I thought, you know what? A stocking's a perfect one for an Ada, and it's perfect size. It'll be a nice big giant stocking, which is exactly how I want mine. I just need to get the right fabric now. Whip Go plans. So the May numbers got called. My May numbers, I've got my notes over here so I don't forget. So my May numbers that got called was 5 days working on Life is an Open Book, 5 days working on my Deer Creek, 5 days on a Summer Small, which is where my Summer ABCs comes into play, and then I've got 5 days on Autumn and Halloween to go. So they are the ones that I will be stitching on this month, which again is perfect. So they're all 5 days. And as an example, this is my example of what I mean about having 2 whip go boards, yet not having to think, okay, well, that's 5 days on Life is an Open Book, 5 days on Deer Creek, 5 days on summer, 5 days on autumn winter. That would be 20 days of the month, in which case that wouldn't leave me very much to do anything else. It doesn't work like that for me. So for 5 evenings, I could work on Life is an Open Book. And then for 5 mornings, I could work on summer ABCs. I've still only stitched 5 days, but I've stitched 2 projects over 5 days. So that for me that's 5 days. And then I could pick 5 days on, say, Greta Goldblum by Bella Filipina, or my Leela Studio Halloween Quaker, and my 5 days on Deer Creek in the evenings. Obviously the Halloween Quaker or the Greta would be done on the train for 5 mornings, and the Deer Creek would be stitched for 5 evenings. So there you go. That's only actually 10 days. 10 days of stitchy time, that is, out of the whole month. And the rest of the month I can do as I will. So talking about I can do as I will, I was sitting there thinking, what do I normally do for May? Now, I know a lot of people are doing mania or some type of mania. Last year I did something called May Madness, where I just went on a crazy May stitch, lots of start new things. This year I've decided I'm going to sort of flip it right on its head, and instead of go with mania, I'm going to go with monogamous. Now you're all like, what? You can't go monogamous because you've got whip go. So mine is like monogamous with exception. That's how I'm rolling with this. So for me, I'm going to make it so that it's monogamous it's monogamous outside of my whip go. So my whip go, like I say, if I do it right, is only 10 days worth of stitching. The rest of the month, the decision has been made that I'm going to do a monogamous stitch. Now, on my live stream that I did this Sunday just gone, I put a poll up to everyone and said, here's my options. Should I do Monogamous May? Or should I not do Monogamous May? And if I do Monogamous May, do I do Alternative Reality, or do I do Evening in the Park? And of course, I think there was a whopping majority of 55% said Evening in the Park. So of course, the lovely Evening in the Park will be coming out as my Monogamous May outside of Whip Go. And you'll know that I was trying to work my way round the border, because I've sort of said I'm a bit worried in case it doesn't match up on the other side. And the next Marabilia retreat that I go to, which I think is towards the end of the year, I think it's about October time, I need to have had that border completed and some of the snow areas, so that the ladies that have agreed to stitch the trees have got somewhere to stitch. So because of that, and the fact that this project has took me far too long to complete, it only makes sense that I use my Evening in the Park as my Monogamous May with exception. There you go. I'm going to call it Monogamous May with exception of Whip Go. So yeah. So next month's update is going to be very short, because I'm only going to show you whatever I've stitched on for Whip Go, and then my monogamous stitching on Evening in the Park. So let's see how I do with that. I have no idea whether that's going to be productive or not productive, but there's only one way to find out. And I quite like the idea of it being monogamous with exception, because to just stitch on one project for a whole month, I'm not sure how I'd cope with that. I'm not sure whether I'd put things in its place of, instead of stitching, I'd do something else, because it's like, well, I stitched on that for the last 5 days, so I don't want to stitch on it again today. This way, it makes it so that it's not concrete. It's not just one project. There's still options out there, which is just how I like it, with options. So that's pretty much it for the plans. Plans is done. What else have we got? For those of you that are not up for Life Update, then thank you for hanging out. Thank you for coming and listening to me ramble on about my projects. And I will see you again next time. For those of you that are hanging around for the Life Update, we did have some amazingly fabulous news. And that is that Bonnie has had another heart scan. We was a bit concerned because they basically said that she won't be able to have any type of general anaesthetic if the heart condition worsens. And arguably, if it got worse after a year, it would normally mean that her life expectancy is really, really short. I am pleased to say that she's had her heart scan done, and they've said that the condition hasn't worsened. The heart is pumping nicely, it's still outputting the way it should, and therefore they are comfortably confident that they can give her a general anaesthetic and we don't have to worry about losing out on the table, which is glorious, because unfortunately not only does Bonbons have the problem with her heart and the fact that she's got a dysplasia. So when we say heart condition, so mitral valve disease is a thing in my breed of dog. She hasn't actually got mitral valve disease, but she does have dysplasia, which basically means the heart didn't form correctly at birth. So it is like a malfunction. It's just the way the valves work differently in our heart. If at some point later on she then progresses on to get mitral valve disease, which is it's not an if, it's more of a when, because Cavaliers, they all get some version of it. Some get it aggressively, some don't. If it doesn't become aggressive, they said that she could live to a real ripe old age with this dysplasia, and she will die of natural causes way on when she's very old, and the same as any other dog. However, if she does get mitral valve disease and it comes on quickly or aggressively, the dysplasia will have an impact on the mitral valve disease. So yeah, it's still very good news. I know that doesn't sound like good news, but given where we was with her when we first got her, we're all very, very happy. She has every chance to have a very good, happy, energetic dog type life until she's who knows how old. But the fact that where we was when we first got her, we didn't even know whether she'd make it to a few years old. I think so far, if it carries on the way it is, we are looking at, she has 6 to 8 plus years, as long as the mitral valve doesn't kick in too soon or too early. But they've said they cannot tell us what will be the outcome. But in the current moment, in the here and now, they are happy for her to have surgery, which is good, because one of the other problems that we have with our poor Bonbons is that she has something called a luxating patella, which basically means that the grooves where her kneecap are, what's supposed to hold the kneecap in situ, for some bizarre reason, the bone is obviously flattened out more than it should, so her kneecap keeps moving in and out of position, which now makes it so that, when she sleeps or she lays down for even just 5 or 10 minutes, when she gets up, she has problems with her back leg. She can't bend it. You have to manually move it into place so that she can bend her little leg, and obviously it brings on arthritis. So she's already showing signs of arthritic issues with that joint, purely because obviously where everything's moving around, it's just wearing out, but it's wearing out like super fast. So we need to get her in to get that done. Also, she's got what's known as a double fang. So one of her baby teeth didn't come out. So she's got 2 teeth that basically sit right next to each other like that, which in this breed, they suffer terribly with their teeth as general rule. So they need to try and whip that little baby tooth out so that, so her teeth stay as healthy as possible. So we've decided that because they've given us the green light for the surgery, we are going to send Bonbons in to get her leg surgery, which is quite a big leg surgery, and also to get her tooth done as part of the same surgery. Honey has got a full clean bill of health. She's a very big burly girl. She's much bigger than Bonbons. They've said that she's at the top end of her weight, whereas Bonbons is sort of at the bottom end of her weight. So we've got one dog that doesn't really eat very much, and we've got another one that eats like a horse apparently. But they've said that she's not unhealthy. She's just, we wouldn't want her to put any actual fat weight on. She just will put on a bit more weight of general Cavalier size, purely because she is so much bigger. The good thing about Honey is obviously we wanted to get the girl spay because there's other issues that come with girl dogs, and we decided that we would get them spay. Again, that was the arguing question with Bonnie. What's more important? Do we get a spay or do we get her leg sorted out? And the vets basically turned around and said, your first priority for Bonnie is to get the leg done, because that is an impact. Whereas the spaying, we can do that, this year, next year, the year after. Honey, on the other hand, like I say, clean bill of health, absolutely nothing wrong with her. So what we might do is when we put Bonnie in to get her leg done, we will get Honey spay at the same time, because Bonbons is not going to want to run around. Or I hope she's not going to want to run around on her leg, because she won't be allowed to. I'm hoping that Honey will be fairly low key. It's hard when you've got two dogs. These two you cannot separate. Well, I live in an open plan house for starters. But secondly, because they're still really young, they both sort of like feed off of each other. So if one starts bounding around and getting overly excited, the other one does the same thing. So I'm hoping that if both of them are feeling slightly under the weather, both of them are likely to be more subdued. I mean, we may still bring out the puppy pen and pen them if we have to. I don't really want to. I'm rather hoping that they'll just stay a bit more low key. And just make sure that when we let them out in the garden, we either let them out one at a time or we let them out on leads so that they can't just go gallivanting off. I mean, the last thing I need is for Honey to go galloping out the door because she feels like a sprightly little chicken, and Bonbons tries to do the same thing with a, post-surgical leg. So, yeah, we haven't booked the girls in yet, but we just need to find the right time to do it, when either I can be more at home with them or I can take a few days off and then Lauren can look after them for the rest of the time. It's only really the first week, 10 days that we need to worry because of stitches and making sure they don't jump on anything and they're not legging it around like lunatics. And I think, that's another thing that we have to look forward to, but it will be worth it in the long term. So also in May, what is super, super exciting is I have a retreat. I have the Bella retreat at Northampton. That is happening on the week of, the 12th of May through to the 14th of May. I will be off in Northampton for the Bella retreat. I am super excited. Looking forward to taking my lovely Bella project. So I've got Mayari, I've got my Greta Goldbroom, I've got my I can't say the names, but anyway, you'll be seeing the pictures as I'm scrolling through these. Not sure if I've got any more. I think that's it. So I might just take all of my Bellas and just stitch Bellas. Also, as part of my whip go for May, like I say, one of them was an autumn Halloween, which would cover Greta because she's Halloween. So yeah, super exciting stuff. And then if that wasn't good enough, if I haven't just got one retreat, at the end of May, beginning of June, so on the beginning of June, so 2nd of June, I'm heading off to Wrexham for another retreat. So what I was going to say is there's me saying I'm on top of my monthly updates and that, I'm back on track. The reality is that I think the 29th of May is a bank holiday. So providing I've got time, I will do my monthly update and get that loaded up for the 29th of May, because the 2nd of June, I'm heading off to the Wrexham retreat. So the 2nd of June through to the 4th of June, I will be at the Wrexham retreat, of which there are shops to go and see. So we've got 2 shops that are local to the Wrexham retreat. So we're going to do a couple of day trips out and go and do some shops. So I need to make sure I've got my pennies at the ready and get wowed. If I can, of course, I will do some recording. I will try and record in the shops as well. That would be so much fun, but I can only do that if I'm allowed to. I love to share the love, especially when it comes to going shopping and retreats and all that good stuff. But I am super excited. I have so much to look forward to now for May and June. Yeah, I just need to get everything else sorted out and be all nice and chilled and happy to do all the stitching and all the fun and all the socialising side. Because do you know what? It's like you go to these retreats and you think, I had a retreat. And then it's that real anticlimax. It's a bit like a wedding. You spend ages preparing for something like a big wedding or, those sorts of things. And then as soon as it's over, it's like one day it's over. It's sort of the same with the retreats. You psych yourself up. You get so excited about going on the retreat. You have your weekend of retreat and then it's over. And then it's like this real anticlimax. It's like, how long have I got until my next retreat? And it is like months away. So the fact that I've got 2 that are so close together is, it's super good. I don't normally have retreats around May and June time purely because it's gardening weather and the good weather is here. I love going to retreats that are out of summer season here in the UK because I wouldn't be doing anything other than sitting indoors and stitching anyway. So yeah, super excited. So much to look forward to. I think that just about wraps up this video, and given that this is like take 2 of this video, I wouldn't say I've done it in record time. I never do, but it is what it is. So what can I say, people, other than I hope you all get lots and lots of stitching done. I hope you're all having a wonderful month. I look forward to seeing you throughout the course of the month. Like I say, there's some bank holidays coming up. So where there's bank holidays, the plan is to do live streams. If all goes according to plan, I will do a live stream this coming Sunday because I'm not working on Monday, which is always good. But as always, I will post it either in Facebook and in Instagram to let you know if I'm doing a live stream. So if you're at a loose end or you just want to sit and hang out and do some stitching, you are more than welcome to come and join me on my live stream. So I hope you all have a wonderful month if I don't see you before. And until next time, people, bye-bye for now.